You all no doubt believe that, because I'm a priest, I have come with words of forgiveness and repentance. Not at all. War against all of them until the last trace has been eliminated. Good morning to everyone. I'm Pep and this is the Spanish Civil War. In this channel and for the next 3 years, we will follow week by week the Spanish Civil War, its battles and the Holocaust that it provoked. Today is the 2nd of August 1936. Last week we saw how each of the zones of influence of the contenders was defined, and also how many important chapters of the Civil War started, as the Battle of Guadarrama, the sieges of the Alcazar and Oviedo, and the campaign in the north. This week, the situation for the Republic does not improve. The state has to be rebuilt from scratch, meanwhile the enemy is knocking at the door. Today, France will finally propose the creation of a non-intervention committee, even if some French ministers continue to send planes for the Republic, as the help from Mussolini and Hitler started to arrive in Morocco, in order to help the airlift that is already taking the Army of Africa to the peninsula, as the strait is blocked by the Republican Navy. Starting with the campaign in the north, as we haven't covered it yet in depth, we've already said that Mola has sent a column to the north, the 20th of July, being its main objectives the conquest of Irun, with the aim of cutting the Republic from the French border, and then Donostia, in order to have the capital of the province and an important port in the Cantabric. Last week, as the garrison of Donostia sided with the rebels and was besieged, Mola diverted its forces in order to help the besieged rebels in Donosti by trying to take Renteria. The 27th, they take Orsayun and make the first attack on Renteria. That fails. The attacks will continue during this week, and unfortunately for the Republic, the Republican commander, Augusto Pérez Garmendia, will be wounded and captured on Monday the 28th. Will die during the following days. After repelling the attack on Renteria, the city will be bombed by the rebels, but the front will stabilize. The 28th, with the fall of the last focus of resistance in Donosti, the rebels have no more hurry in taking Renteria, so they go back to the original plan of taking Irun in order to cut France from Spain. Meanwhile, other columns will head to Tolosa, taking Beasin the 27th. Also in the north, but in Galicia, the battle for the city of Vigo comes to an end the 28th. The army reduces the last focus of resistance and in a month will have all of the members of the Popular Front Committee shot. The 29th, a column 1,000 strong departs from Lugo in order to attack Asturias, where it enters after some skirmishes with few Republican militias. In Asturias, the siege of Oviedo continues, but having taken all the main cities of the nearby Galicia, the rebels can now send a couple more of columns to Asturias in order to relieve the besieged forces. The 28th, also a busy day, the priest of Rosiana, a small village in Andalusia, makes the speech we made at the beginning of our episode. The 27th, a column under Carranza arrived to that village. Nobody was harmed, but some right-wing power symbols were burned. The priest, Padre Lorden, was protected in the house of the mayor. After his speech, 60 people will be shot. He will complain the repression was too soft. In another village, Cantillana, that fell the 30th of July without resistance, the first of more than 200 executions started. The priest of Cantillana will be removed from its post after the Civil War, as he allegedly said in one of its sermons that if the church is damaged, it can be repaired. If statues have been burned, they can be replaced. But the husband or the son who has been killed can never be replaced. Priests, like the one in Cantillana, were the exception. The church has almost unanimously sided with the rebels. We've said almost. There's an exception, Euskalherria, the Basque country. We'll cover it in deep later on. Going back to the Guadarrama sector, this chapter will get closed for now this week. The front will be considered stable. This first major battle of the war is often considered to be a Republican victory, as the militias that had air and artillery superiority prevented the rebels from reaching Madrid, its main objective. It was thought a costly and bitter victory. Some prominent Republican officers died, and the government troops didn't manage to retake none of the passes that remained in rebel hands until the end of the war. Apart from that, the number of casualties of battle is difficult to be known, as it was carried out by militias on both sides. The merged death toll will be around 5,000 casualties. The other main scenario of the war this week was Toledo. Last week, the troops under Colonel Riquelme reached the city, forcing the rebels to retreat to the Alcazar, but not before holding the attackers in the Hospital de Talavera long enough to allow the fortress to be replenished with ammunition from the weapons factory. The 23rd, a very famous and infamous call took place. Supposedly, the leader of Izquierda Republicana called Colonel Moscardó and asked him to surrender the fortress. He told him that in case he wouldn't surrender, he would have his son killed. However, no less than 4 historians had dismounted this version in different books, and even Preston and Beaver don't give it credit to. The documents and the diaries of the same Colonel Moscardó seem to disagree with the official narrative. There are historians that even doubt that the phone call took place. But even if the call was made, and with it the menace of killing Colonel's son, the facts are, first, that the colonel just spoke with one man, as he points out in his diaries and letters to his wife, and second, that the son of the colonel that was killed by the Republicans was killed in reprisal of a bombardment in one of the numerous and infamous sacas from Republican prisons, like the one that happened this week, the 28th, busy day, after a bombardment by 2 rebel planes on Malaga. Moscardó's son will be killed 1 month later. So, the link between the call and the death seems weak. As happened with the death of Balmes, Calvo Sotelo and Alon, etc., the Civil War, the construction of a narrative was of huge importance. We could say, and I would like you to recommend you the video in the description about the raising of fascism, brought us by the Time Ghost Army, that the rebels became masters in the creation of new truths. They resembled the Civil War to the Reconquista of the Spanish land from the hands of foreigners. Let's point out that today the same idea of the Reconquista is starting to be considered no more than a myth, even if it's a foundational myth of the Spanish state. So we have this 1936 army of the Reconquista that pretends to invade Spain from Africa, that is composed in part of Muslim soldiers and held by Germany and Italy, and that is attacking the country they swore to defend, its own people. But in their point of view, they are the ones fighting against foreign influence, and even if they have perpetrated a coup, their enemies, the Spanish Republic, are the ones in open rebellion. So this episode of the Alcazar can easily be compared with the legend of Guzmán el Bueno, Spanish medieval hero that allegedly refused to give up the fortress of Tarifa to the Muslim besiegers under the command of John of Castile. Guzmán, as Moscardó, was threatened with the death of his son in cause of refusal. Beyond the narrative, between the 20th and the 31st of July, more than 400 people were murdered in Toledo under the Red Terror. During this period, also Madrid and Barcelona suffered from uncontrolled gangs. The situation was deemed that terrible on the Republican side that the Portuguese Chancellor of Affairs in Madrid considered the risk of an epidemic outbreak because of the number of dead people on the streets of the capital. The numbers will show us that this was nothing compared on what will happen on the rebel side, but in this early phase of the war, they will be acting in small villages, making their atrocities more difficult to trace. This week, we'll see also the fail of the liberation of Teruel. The 25th of July, 2 columns, one from Valencia and one from Castelló, composed by civil guards, carabiners and militiamen, departed in order to liberate the city. The columns met at Sagunto and were joined by more civil guards in the village of Segorbe. The columns split again, and most of the civil guards, with 50 militiamen, went to Puebla de Valverde, while the rest headed to Mora de Rubielos. At Puebla, the 29th, the civil guards switched sides, murdering the militiamen, the carabineers, and more than 50,000 men. In response, the troops from Mora went to Puebla, where they were disbanded by the civil guards and their leaders taken prisoners, just to be shot in Teruel the 1st of August. As the telephone or the airplane and the media, treason has been a tool of huge importance during these first stages of the war. The Oviedo episode, Toledo, Donostia, Teruel, and the 2 episodes of Huelva, where the civil guards and soldiers betrayed the government after assuring their loyalty, meant that the militia and the people, in general, on Republican territory have now a justified mistrust towards the soldiers that allegedly remain loyal to the Republic. This mistrust will increase the leadership problems of the Republic and will lead to important losses among their ranks. This week saw also the fall of Huelva on the march, after the 28th, when the troops that had to stop the rebels in the village of Palma del Condado changed side. At the beginning of the coup, back to the 18th, a column was sent from Huelva to Sevilla in order to help the citizens that were fighting Queipo de Llano. The column was formed by civil guards commanded by Gregorio Aro de Lumbreras and miners with explosives. The column splits in two as the civil guards advanced before the miners. They then arrived at Seville and joined the rebels. After joining the rebels, they were tasked to ambush the miners. The ones that were not killed during the fray will be shot during the coming days. Leaving treacherous officers aside and continuing with the battles, but the ones that are fought with pens and paper, this week a group of intellectuals signed the Manifest for the Alliance of Anti-Fascist Intellectuals for the Defense of the Culture. On the rebel side, after being beheaded by the death of Sanjurjo and creating the Junta de Defensa, this political organ issues the martial law decree. By this decree, every military law or authority will find itself above any political law or authority, thus making effective the state of war in the rebel part of Spain, and granting free hand for executions without trial in their occupied zone. Even if this was the first important political movement of the junta, something happened this week that may have challenged its power, as Juan de Borbón, one of the heirs to the Spanish throne on the exile, entered Spain in order to join the rebel cause. But Mola, the director, having himself proclaimed the coup in order to save the Republic, sends him back to the French border. On the international stage, as said in the introduction, this week the first German and Italian aid lands in Morocco. 3 Italian Savoia bombers are lost, a couple of them in French territory. Even if the Italian flag was removed and the crew dressed in plain clothes, it seems a bit suspicious for the French, that were, by that time, still aiding the Spanish Republic with planes, but without pilots. The ones who finally decided not to help the Republic were the British, or at least its government. The 31st of July, they presented an embargo of weapons against Spain. I would like to end the week with something that I found in Vivor and the sentence that General Franco, that today made a trip to Sevilla, even he won't establish himself there until the next week, made in an interview. In Vivor, I found that the 23rd, the rebellion was crushed in Puente Genil. The townfolk celebrated it by playing a football match with the head of the statue of the Virgin as a ball, between teams arrayed in ecclesiastical robe. 114 right-wing sympathizers were also killed. Saturday, the 1st of August, yesterday, the rebels took the city. The first day they murdered 501 citizens. 1,000 more will be killed during the following months. As Franco said in an interview with Jane Allen this week, there can be no compromise, no truce. So, if you missed our last week's episode, here's the link. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe us. If you enjoyed it, share it. We have to bring light to the history of Spain. If you can take it to school, also do it. If you're able to support us in our Patreon channel, this could also be great. Thanks for your attention. As you may see, we still have problems with videos and photos. We have a few of them. With your help, we will be able to purchase the rights to make more quality content. So please help us and share. Goodbye and salute.